Now we don't have to control it, put it all out in the open. If it's only for a moment, it's a lifetime of emotion. Put it all out in the open.
Hey guys, and welcome back. I figured it was about time that I update you on Percy, the off-the-track thoroughbred that I share with Janae, who also works with me. So, most recently, my biggest struggle with him has been getting the amount of weight and muscle that I wanted to on him. When we got him, he was quite race fit, and he gets quite lean at the track in town because he didn't like spending time there, which is why he mostly spent time at the farm while he was racing. So, getting him to hold weight and carry the weight and distribute it well has been more of a struggle than I initially anticipated. Since he is so small, I thought he would be easier to feed. It's not that he's a hard keeper. I'm trying to get the fat on him without giving him too much grain because none of my horses are on a lot of grain at this point. So I had carefully selected some supplements that were intended to put some fat on him, and the one that I have seen work the best is the Equiate Equine Body Support, or Equine Body Builder it is called in the US. I'm in Canada, so it's Equine Body Support here, and it's basically a rice bran emulsion, and it's liquid, so it's easy to mix in with their food and stir in and have them eat it. And I've not noticed that any of the ones I've fed it to are bothered by the taste of it. I've mostly used it on Percy because he's the horse that I've been the most focused on putting weight on. So I'm just going to show you some videos and photos from before he had been on it for a longer period of time. So these ones from October 2019 are from when he first came off the track, and as you can see, he's still very shiny and healthy, but you can see his ribs, even though there is some rib coverage, and he's tucked up because he's race fit. So this is before he was ever started on the equine body support, so he isn't at the weight that we would want for a riding horse here. And then next, this photo is from 2 weeks ago before I started him back on the equine body support. I had him on it over the winter, and then I stopped for a brief period in the spring, and then I put him back on it more recently. So this is the difference before. I'm going to show you the current clips of him from like the other day. So like you can see, his ribs are still visible, but there is some fat coverage over them, so they're only visible at certain angles. And then the biggest thing I noticed with him here is that he has pockets behind the wither way more than he does right now, and his hind end isn't as filled out as it is currently. Obviously the difference between this and the recent clips will be more subtle than the difference between him when he was race fit and now. But you can see where I'm getting at, where his top line just isn't great, and he still has pockets behind the wither, and obviously his neck is quite thin, and that is still something we are currently working on, but there's just room for improvement, and I just wanted to get a little bit more weight on him at this point. So like I said, the difference is more subtle, but what I notice in him is that his top line is more flat, and definitely behind the withers there is quite a bit more coverage. His hind end is rounder, he has a better top line, and his neck is starting to fill out. With his neck, building that will take longer because a lot of that is going to come from him doing work and putting on more muscle, but he needs to be at a good weight to do that and then build muscle from there. And now we're getting enough calories in him that he's really starting to fill out and look quite nice. His coat is really nice and shiny. He's still shedding out his winter coat, but it's almost gone, and he looks great. The other thing about this supplement that I've noticed is that it doesn't make my horses any hotter. I've not noticed any increase in their energy level whatsoever. With that said, my horses are outside 24/7, and turnout is a very important part of horse care that needs to be considered even when you're adding supplements. The other thing that's important to note is that the type of hay that they get is very important, and if you're not feeding enough hay or high enough quality of it, even good supplements like this won't give you the full results that you need. So the diet for hay definitely needs to be there as well, but supplements are great for doing the finishing touch and helping you put on the condition a lot faster than you would So yeah, it's been a really fun experiment to try the equine body support because I've not used it on horses that I've gotten off the track in previous years. So seeing how quickly it helps me put weight on them when they're race fit and to get them to where I want them as a riding horse, that's really great, and it's definitely something I will use in the future when I'm pulling horses off the track, especially with sales horses, because then you can get them looking fantastic and how sport horse people want them to look a lot faster. So I would definitely recommend this product because it's really easy to feed and it's palatable and it works. But now we're done talking about his condition and that part of his transformation. Let's go into the riding part. So in the clips with Janae, Percy had a bit of a party before this. So this canter is after he had quieted down, and this is also one of his first few rides off property where we got a really nice quiet canter. The nice thing about this arena is that it's so big that for the racehorses, they really like it because it's easier for them to balance. So in these clips with me, what I noticed the most is at the trot, he's just a lot more tense and resistant in the bridle. He's going a lot quicker and he's just more tense behind. He has more hawk action in these clips because he is also trying to avoid the puddles. It was quite wet this day and he did not like that. But he doesn't look this tense anymore, and I haven't seen him do this like egg beater really fast trot with his head up in the air in quite some time. He just looks like he's taking a million trot steps a minute instead of stepping out more and having a bigger stride. And then obviously here, his canter transition is just crazy. He would scoot his bum and run into them, especially in the smaller arenas. At the racetrack, we kind of just stand in our stirrups and let them out to kind of pick up the canter on their own, and then they have a really big loop before they turn. So it's quite a bit different since I'm sitting down on him in this, and he would scoot like that for like the first 3 or 4 transitions every ride. The other thing is that since he was so unbalanced, he would canter quite fast and swap out his leads, especially through the puddles, because he didn't want to go through the puddles, as you can see. Even in these rides, though, you can see that by the end of the ride, he's definitely improving. His trot relaxes, his canter transitions are better, and his canter is quieter, which is really nice. But this is a good example of some of the struggles we had initially, and now I'll show you the new clips. I do want to acknowledge how much Percy's demeanor has changed since he started 24/7 turnout, especially with my group of horses who are more playful than the ones we initially had him with when he was at my client's house for a short period of time. So now that he's been able to play with them more and be out all the time, he's calmed down significantly and he's way easier to work with, especially on the ground for tacking him up. And I think this is a contributing factor to how relaxed he starts off his rides now. So this is the first part of our trot warm-up from our ride the other day, and I feel like it's immediately noticeable how much more relaxed he is. He's not bracing against the bit as much, and he's stretching forward and down quite a bit more than he was in the previous clips. So to start off like this, in comparison to how he was a couple of months ago, I'm pretty proud of that to compare the difference in his warm-up, where he would typically be at his most tense or rushy and less rhythmic. He's starting off significantly better than he did before. The other major difference I've noticed in him is that his canter transitions have really improved. He doesn't scoot into them in the same way, and he also doesn't start out his canter as quickly as he did initially. And he also is leaning into the bridle less than he used to, which is quite normal since racehorses are trained to run into the bridle. So it's one of the first few things that we get working on to get them softer in the bit. His canter has also gotten a lot more rhythmic and relaxed, and he's way more consistent in the bridle in general. He doesn't pop above the bit at the canter as much as he used to, especially to the right. And he just overall is stronger through the turns and around the arena than he used to be. He has an easier time holding his lead and not popping to the other lead when he gets unbalanced, which is fantastic. To the right, he is pretty solid at the trot. He maintains a pretty good rhythm and he's very soft in the bridle, so I'm really happy with how he goes to the right. To the left, he is a little weaker and more inclined to brace against the bridle a little bit and not relax down quite as well, and that's a little unusual for racehorses in that they're typically stronger to the left. But since I take in so many racehorses, I do a lot of stuff to try to stretch them and get them better to the right, so sometimes it's overcompensating and then they become stronger to the right than the left. But most horses do have a direction that they're stronger in, and now we're just going to be working to make him more even, knowing that. To the left, he's just a little less consistent in the bridle and pops more in and out of the bridle than he does to the right, but he still is quite relaxed and he still offers a forward and downward stretch. He just doesn't hold it for quite as long this direction, so I'm still very happy with what he looks like because the difference between right to left is minimal, but it is noticeable, so I figured I would point it out in this video. But overall, I'm really happy with the major difference in his level of relaxation and how comfortable he is now stretching down into that down and forward frame. Percy tries very hard and he's very smart, so he is very trainable, especially now that any of the tension and anxiety that came from him, maybe not having enough playtime with other horses initially, all of that's gone and he's gotten so much more relaxed, and I would attribute part of that to him being able to blast around in the field with my horses like you saw in the first few clips in this video. It's made him a lot happier and he's so much easier to work with as a result and enjoys his work way more. To the left, both his upward and his downward transition from canter are looking pretty good. He's not scooting into the canter this way either, and his transitions downward to trot are less bracy than they were before. He's a lot lighter in the mouth and he's not as resistant when you ask him to come down from canter. So all of that's really good. He's starting to get really well established basics and getting more consistency, which is fantastic. Overall, Percy does need to strengthen his top line and develop even more consistency, and then that's when we'll start to see him build more of a neck and start to get stronger hindquarters and throughout the back as well. So that all takes time. It's kind of long, slow work, kind of like how people would slowly build up to doing the plank for longer and longer. That's essentially what we're doing with him. And until he gets the strength to be more consistent, he will be less consistent because it's just so hard to ask their bodies to support themselves in that way while carrying a rider. I suppose the last thing to show you guys riding-wise is just the first time I chose to try riding him bridle-less, which was after I schooled him with a bridle in this particular ride, and he was fantastic. It's one of my favorite things to do with my horses because it really does show you how well-tuned their leg and seat aids are, as well as how well they neck rein if you are riding with a neck rope. And it's really fun to try with the youngsters because once I establish those foundational aids, I do like to play a little bit with bridle-less just to see how they go and to kind of force myself to remember to use more and more seat and leg in my riding and as little hands as possible. And in riding bridle-less, it forces you to do that since you don't have the option to use the bit. So I was really proud of him with how well he took to this and how easy it was for him. He's just such a sweet boy, and I love doing this with the racehorses especially because it does show that thoroughbreds aren't all hot-headed sillies that are going to bolt on you. They just need to be trained not to be hot-headed sillies. So anyways, that's the latest on Percy. I'm really happy with how he has developed so far because he really hasn't been in much work until recently. We started putting him in a more consistent program over the last month or so, but up until then, we were just riding very occasionally, and mostly he spent his time off because of the weather, and also it's just good for young horses to have brain breaks and just go out with their friends. So that's all he did, but I'm really happy with the weight that he's put on, and I'm also really happy with how he's starting to condition, and I'm excited to see how his neck in particular starts to develop as he gets better on the flat and starts to use himself better. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I'm going to do another updated video of him in a few months once he's even more developed, just to kind of show the process of working with the off-the-track thoroughbreds. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I hope you're all having an amazing day, and I hope you're all staying nice and healthy and safe. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so that you don't miss my next uploads. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe.